Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Meredith, and today I am presenting our design concept for Columbia Park alongside my teammates Angelica and Nicole. We're so grateful to be included in this process and equally excited to walk you through ours. When we first visited Columbia Park, we were initially struck by the sheer vastness of the space. Not only was the park empty, but the programming, planting, and users were concentrated mostly around the perimeter. And given the existing low-rise neighborhood context, we initially saw this as a pretty negative aspect. Somewhere along the line, however, it became clear that this vast openness is quite a rarity in the city of Vancouver. And when considering the views that it offers, perhaps it's also what makes this park inherently valuable. Apart from downtown, the Oak Ridge neighborhood is the fastest growing area in Vancouver. And as the neighborhood grows and develops vertically, maintaining access to open spaces such as this is imperative for community well-being. And over the next 10 years, we can expect tens of thousands of new residents into the area. So green lawns and single-family homes will largely be replaced with concrete and high-rises. So as such, our proposal for Columbia Park serves as an antithesis to densification. As we visited and immersed ourselves in the site, we took note of the different sensorial experiences, as well as the existing conditions around it. And analyzing the park's current state in relation to the city's development goals, we defined three major issues that the park faces. The first constraint is the significant presence of water on site. Columbia Park receives between 1,300 to 1,400 millimeters of rainfall a year, and the topography is such that water drains ineffectively and saturates the soil, doing little to catch runoff from surrounding streets. And as we expand hardscape within the city, the infiltration capacity of our surfaces decline, putting more pressure on existing infrastructure and local ecosystems. And this effect will only be amplified as storms intensify, which further increases demand for green spaces that can manage such volume.
Our second issue relates to the social profile of the Oak Ridge neighborhood and the lack of programming that responds to it. With the current park program consisting of lawns, sports fields, and children's play equipment, this neighborhood park seems to have no unique identity and sense of place, and it fails to respond to the highly diversifying group of residents in the area. The trends that are shown in the Oak Ridge social indicators profile necessitate accessible recreation spaces for restoration, activity, gathering, and celebration of community identity. Lastly, we've identified the lack of natural content on site as a major issue. The diversity of vegetation is limited to a few species of deciduous trees and a wide lawn, which does very little to protect from sun exposure, wind, drought, and flooding, and provides few ecosystem services. So with the increasing impacts of climate change and the loss of green space, the park's vast open space presents an opportunity to host a more diverse and resilient recreational space. So to sum up, our goals for this project fall into three differently scaled categories of connection. By introducing stormwater management, we connect the user to their city, its fragility, and the preservation of it. By creating spaces for socialization, we can foster community relationships and belonging. And by introducing more complex planting schemes, we improve biodiversity while connecting visitors to both nature and self.
So our design process was rigorous with roughly 40 layout and concept iterations. We asked questions like, what if seasonal water changes revealed new program areas in the summertime? What if the park acted as a basin that diverted water to a central wetland? Or what if the collection basin framed the view, realizing that the topography was the driving force within these iterations? These explorations led us to our design statement, which is to use topography and the flow of water to enhance the experience of vastness within this densifying urban center. We were inspired by the dramatic topography of Governor's Island, which offers both enclosed spaces and vast openness. And we use physical models to play with earthwork, thinking about how to incorporate monumentality into this site. We also use CAD modeling to bring these iterations down to scale, better relating it to the future development. And to connect topography to the concept of vastness, we wanted to create openness both within the park and openness beyond the park, arriving at two contrasting concept designs. The first aims to create an oasis away from the bustling city, whereas the second enhances openness by expanding views beyond the park limits. So we considered feedback during the midterm reviews intently and pulled pieces from each of these ideas to create our final design. Our park is defined by the large mounds and features several terraces that vary in degree of busyness and openness. A large pavilion and stage allows for gathering and events, whereas the meadow of ornamental grasses and perennials offers wild and restorative elements. The natural play area provides seating, shade, and views, and we have several quiet nooks for seating that allow for enclosure and introspection. And our water features direct circulation and draw visitors inwards towards the central wetland. This section here truly showcases our big topographical moves. The first being the large mound where seating, viewing, and sunny spaces are amplified, acting as a general gathering space or an informal amphitheater. The second move, of course, is the wetland, an adjacent depression that enhances the magnitude of these two spaces. And finally, we've extended the street level grade well into the park to allow for a seamless transition between the urban and natural contexts. Walking up the side of the mound through tall meadow grasses, visitors can sit atop the sunny slope and enjoy a view of the mountains beyond the city.
So these topographical moves created a layered framework for us to address the main issues that we identified in our analysis, which are water, programming, and planting. We know that Columbia Park sits within the Canby Street corridor and has been identified as an integral part of Vancouver's stormwater management plan. So by relating our design to the greater infrastructural context, our design fosters connection between people and their city. Drawing inspiration from the Little Mountain Reservoir that stores Vancouver's drinking water, we asked, how can Columbia Park help both manage stormwater during rainy months and provide water in the dry season? So to explore this idea, we used model making to consider how the site could collect and store water. And with that, we created a tiered wetland system that fluctuates with the seasons. We wanted to create a park that is equally hospitable in the winter months as it is in the summer by turning rain events into an asset where the park comes alive and water is celebrated. In winter months, stormwater from surrounding streets is collected and diverted into the park. Runoff is slowed and filtered so it can be safely dispatched into municipal sewer systems, minimizing pollution and strain on existing infrastructure. And excess water is stored below ground for irrigation and splash pad usage in the summer months. And the stormwater management extends beyond the park onto the surrounding streets. The water features for Alberta Street include a number of swales, expanded sidewalks with permeable paving, and rain gardens to collect and filter water. Water from the street draws you into the park as it flows through these rain gardens and runnels, focusing your attention inward and providing a multi-sensorial experience. And inside the park, the bridge takes you over this retention pond that fluctuates with the seasons.
Our second major intervention relates to programming and how we've created connections within the community. We were inspired by the vibrancy of Bryant Park, where surrounding streets bleed into flexible shaded seating, leaving a wide open space in the center of Manhattan. We began by thinking about the threshold between park and city, the approach, the views, and experience along the edges. We decided to shift the majority of the programming to the surrounding streetscape to fully connect this park to the community. Along Alberta Street, an emphasis on pedestrians and cyclists and the provision of planting blurs the transition between the dense urban context and the quiet neighborhood park. This vibrant streetscape fosters connection and participation and allows for more outdoor living space for the influx of new residents. And to accommodate large neighborhood groups and big events, we designed a pavilion at the high-density northern edge of the park. The space comes alive in the rain. Water clangs the metal roof and trickles downstairs through runnels and into the underground cisterns. And in the summer months, stored water provides irrigation and supplies the splash pads in the plaza. On the other side of the park, a more secluded area accommodates families and quieter moments with a play area, a lookout, and small seating nooks. The visitor is drawn inward by a sloping path bordered by planted retaining walls, and then the play area is intentionally walled off for safety, and it incorporates elements of natural play and topography with shaded seating areas. The lookout is wheelchair accessible and displays a view of the entire site.
And last but not least, we have our final intervention skill to discuss, which is connecting to nature and connecting to self through our planting scheme and our introduced biomes. So Tanner Springs Park in Portland, Oregon inspired our meadow and our wetland scheme. This park is not only functional, but highly aesthetic and biodiverse. Additionally, instead of eradicating surrounding city views, it creates a seamless transition between the urban context and the natural space. So with that in mind, we work through how we might incorporate openness and enclosure, how we might frame views, and how we can provide restoration while also returning the landscape to its natural conditions. So the inclusion of the wetland was as much about stormwater management as it was about creating habitat and providing meaningful experiences. So the boardwalk allows for a safe and close interaction with water and its associated wildlife, where visitors can touch the water, they can watch insects fly about, they can see birds and amphibians in their natural habitat. Moving south, we come to the meadow, which is a densely planted area of year-round interest where visitors can seek solace. It's nestled at a lower elevation than the majority of the park, and it is surrounded by aspens and willows, ornamental grasses that promote calmness and restoration. Seating and paths are tucked within the grasses, and visitors can read, they can walk, run, gather, and simply interact with the planting on a tactile level. And our final visual speaks to all of our grand moves, including the one we've saved for last. So bringing us back to the start and that beautiful mountain view, we propose that the parties involved rethink the height of the buildings on the north side of West 42nd to maintain the view corridor to the mountains. Not only will this create connections to the city and to nature, but it will also aid in establishing a sense of place, identity for the park, and an equity of use for all. Thank you.